Homeless boy dragged a biker's pregnant wife out of a burning car. What the Hells Angels did next for the boy shocked everyone. Most people remember exactly where they were when their life changed forever. For 14-year-old Marcus Chun, that moment came on a Tuesday morning in late October, behind an abandoned gas station on the outskirts of Riverside, wrapped in a torn jacket 3 sizes too big, trying to ignore the hunger gnawing at his stomach. He'd been living on the streets for 8 months, ever since his grandmother passed, and social services lost track of him in the system. Riverside wasn't a big city, but it was big enough for a skinny kid to disappear into the cracks, surviving on day-old sandwiches from convenience stores and the occasional kindness of strangers who never stuck around long enough to ask his name. Before we go any further, I want to know where you're watching this from. Drop your city or country in the comments below. I love seeing how far these stories travel, and it helps me know you're out there listening. Now, back to Marcus. That morning started like any other. Cold, gray, the kind of morning where the sky looked like dirty concrete and the air tasted like exhaust fumes. Marcus had found shelter behind the old Texaco station, a place that had been closed for 2 years, its windows boarded up and covered in graffiti. The owner had moved on, but the building remained, a skeleton of what used to be. Marcus had carved out a spot between the dumpster and the back wall, hidden from the road, where he could sleep without being hassled by cops, or worse. He was barely awake, rubbing the sleep from his eyes, when he heard it. The screech of tires. The sickening crunch of metal against concrete. Then silence, just for a heartbeat, before a woman's scream tore through the morning air. Marcus scrambled to his feet, his heart hammering in his chest. He peered around the corner of the building, and his blood ran cold. About 50 yards away, at the intersection where the old highway met Riverside Avenue, a silver sedan had slammed sideways into a concrete barrier. The front end was completely crushed, steam pouring from under the hood like a dying dragon's last breath. And then he saw the flames. Small at first, just licking at the undercarriage, but growing, spreading with terrifying speed. Marcus didn't think. He just ran. His feet pounded against the asphalt, his lungs burning as he sprinted toward the wreck. Inside the car, a woman was trapped. He could see her through the spiderwebbed windshield, her hands frantically pulling at the seat belt, her face contorted in panic and pain. She was young, maybe late 20s, with dark hair and terror in her eyes. And her belly, Marcus could see even from a distance, was swollen with pregnancy. She wasn't just fighting for her own life. She was fighting for 2. People were starting to emerge from nearby buildings, pointing, pulling out phones, but nobody was moving. Fear has a way of freezing people in place, turning them into spectators instead of heroes. But Marcus had learned something living on the streets. When you have nothing left to lose, fear becomes a luxury you can't afford. He reached the car just as the flames began crawling up toward the engine block. The heat hit him like a physical force, stealing the air from his lungs. The driver's side door was jammed, the metal twisted and bent from the impact. Marcus yanked on the handle with everything he had, but it wouldn't budge. Inside, the woman's eyes locked onto his. "Help me," she gasped, her voice muffled through the glass. "Please, my baby." Marcus's mind raced. The passenger side. He stumbled around the front of the car, the heat intensifying with every second. The passenger door was less damaged, but still stuck. He grabbed a chunk of broken concrete from the ground and slammed it against the window. Once, twice. The glass spiderwebbed further, but didn't break. The flames were spreading faster now, black smoke beginning to fill the cabin. The woman was coughing, her movements becoming sluggish. Marcus hit the window again, harder this time, putting every ounce of strength his thin frame could muster into the blow. The glass shattered. He reached through, unlocking the door from the inside, and wrenched it open. Smoke billowed out, thick and choking. Marcus covered his mouth with his sleeve and leaned in. The woman's seatbelt was jammed, the mechanism crushed in the impact. Her hands were shaking as she pulled at it uselessly. Marcus saw a piece of sharp metal from the broken dashboard, grabbed it, and began sawing at the belt. The fabric was tough, resistant, but he kept going, his hands slipping with sweat, his eyes streaming tears from the smoke. Come on, come on, he muttered, more to himself than to her. Finally, the belt gave way. Marcus grabbed the woman under her arms and pulled. She was heavier than he expected, her pregnant belly making the angle awkward, but adrenaline gave him strength he didn't know he had. He dragged her out of the car, stumbling backward, and they fell together onto the pavement. Marcus scrambled to his feet, grabbed her wrists, and pulled her away from the wreck. They had barely made it 10 feet when the car exploded. The blast was deafening, a wall of heat and light that knocked Marcus flat on his back. Debris rained down around them, pieces of burning metal and plastic. His ears rang, his vision blurred, but he forced himself to move. He crawled to the woman, who was lying on her side, coughing violently. "Are you okay?" he gasped. "Can you breathe?" She nodded weakly, her hand moving protectively to her belly. "My baby," she whispered. "Is my baby okay?" Marcus didn't know. He had no idea. But he nodded anyway, trying to give her hope. By now, a crowd had gathered. People were shouting, someone was yelling for an ambulance, and in the distance, Marcus could hear sirens approaching. He sat back on his heels, his whole body shaking, the adrenaline starting to wear off and leaving him feeling hollow and exhausted. The woman reached out and grabbed his hand. Her grip was weak, but her eyes were fierce. "You saved us," she said, her voice cracking. "You saved my baby and me." Marcus didn't know what to say. He just squeezed her hand back, feeling something crack open inside his chest, something that had been closed off for so long he'd forgotten it existed. Connection, matching to someone. Then he heard it, the unmistakable rumble of motorcycles. Not just one or two, but a whole pack of them, the deep, throaty roar of Harley-Davidson engines that made the ground vibrate. Marcus looked up, and his stomach dropped. Coming down Riverside Avenue in a tight formation were at least 15 motorcycles, all black and chrome, their riders wearing leather vests covered in patches. And on the back of every vest, Marcus saw the same symbol, a skull with wings, surrounded by flames. The Hells Angels' death head. The bikes roared into the intersection, engines cutting off one by one as the riders dismounted. They moved with purpose, scanning the scene, assessing. The crowd instinctively backed away, giving them space. The Hells Angels had a reputation in Riverside, and it wasn't the kind that made people comfortable. The lead rider, a massive man with a gray-streaked beard and arms like tree trunks, strode toward the woman still lying on the pavement with Marcus beside her. His boots were heavy, his expression unreadable behind dark sunglasses. Then he dropped to his knees beside the woman, and his voice, when he spoke, cracked with emotion. "Sophia," he said, pulling off his sunglasses to reveal eyes wet with tears. "Baby, are you okay?" The woman, Sophia, let out a sob of relief. "Jax," she gasped. "I'm okay. We're okay." The baby, the man, Jax, placed a trembling hand on her belly, and Marcus saw his jaw clench, saw the fear and rage warring in his expression. Then Jax's eyes shifted to Marcus, taking in the skinny kid with soot-smeared cheeks and torn clothes, the broken piece of metal still clutched in one hand. "You," Jax said, his voice rough. "You pulled her out?" Marcus nodded, suddenly aware of how small he was compared to this mountain of a man. I couldn't leave her," he stammered. Jax stared at him for a long moment. Then, without warning, he reached out and grabbed Marcus, pulling him into a crushing hug. The gesture was so unexpected that Marcus froze, his arms pinned to his sides, his face pressed against the leather of Jax's vest. When Jax finally let him go, his eyes were red. "You saved my wife," Jax said, his voice thick. "You saved my unborn child. Kid, I don't even know your name, but you just became family." Marcus blinked, confusion washing over him. family. Another biker, this one with a shaved head and a scar running down his left cheek, approached. Boss, the ambulance is 2 minutes out. Jax nodded, then looked back at Marcus. What's your name, kid? Marcus, he said quietly. Marcus Chun. Jax repeated the name like he was committing it to memory. Marcus Chun. The ambulance arrived, and paramedics swarmed around Sophia, checking her vitals, loading her onto a stretcher. Jax walked beside her, holding her hand, but he kept glancing back at Marcus. Before they closed the ambulance doors, Sophia called out, Marcus. Marcus stepped closer. The woman's face was pale, her breathing labored, but she smiled at him. Thank you, she said. You gave me and my baby a chance. I'll never forget that. Then the doors closed, and the ambulance sped away, sirens wailing. Marcus stood in the middle of the street, surrounded by bikers, feeling more out of place than he ever had in his life. The crowd was dispersing now that the excitement was over, people drifting back to their routines. But the Hells Angels weren't moving. They were all watching him. Jax turned to face Marcus fully. Where are your parents, kid? Marcus looked down at his feet. Don't have any. My grandma raised me, but she died last winter. Jax's expression darkened. So where are you staying? Marcus hesitated, then gestured vaguely toward the abandoned gas station. Back there, behind the building. One of the other bikers, a guy with long hair tied in a ponytail and a patch that said Reaper, cursed under his breath. Are you telling me you've been living on the streets? Marcus nodded, shame burning in his chest. It's not that bad. I manage. Reaper looked at Jax. Boss, we can't just leave him here. Jax crossed his arms, his jaw set. No, he said slowly. We can't. He stepped closer to Marcus, crouching down so they were eye level. Marcus, you just did something most grown men wouldn't have the guts to do. You ran into a burning car to save a pregnant woman. My pregnant wife. That kind of courage, that kind of heart, it doesn't go unrewarded. Not in my world. Marcus didn't know what to say. He'd never been praised before, not like this. Jax continued. You've got nowhere to go, no one looking out for you. That changes today. You're coming with us. Marcus's eyes widened. What? Where? Jax stood, placing a heavy hand on Marcus's shoulder. The clubhouse. You'll stay with us until Sophia and the baby are safe and sound. And after that, we'll figure out what's next. But one thing's for sure, kid. You're not sleeping behind a gas station ever again. Another biker, older, with gray hair and kind eyes, spoke up. Name's Grizzly, he said, extending a hand. And Jax is right. You're one of us now, whether you know it or not. Marcus shook the offered hand, feeling the strength and calluses of a man who'd worked with his hands his whole life. The other bikers nodded, murmuring agreement. Marcus felt tears prickling at the corners of his eyes, but he blinked them away. He didn't cry. He hadn't cried in months. But standing there, surrounded by these rough, intimidating men who were looking at him like he mattered, he felt something shift inside him. Jax whistled sharply, and one of the bikers brought over a helmet. You ever ridden on a bike before, kid? Jax asked. Marcus shook his head. Well, today's your lucky day. You're riding with me. Jax swung a leg over his Harley, a beast of a machine with chrome pipes and a leather seat. He patted the space behind him. Hop on, Marcus. And hold on tight. Marcus climbed onto the bike, his legs barely reaching the foot pegs, and wrapped his arms around Jax's waist. The engine roared to life beneath them, and Marcus felt the vibrations travel through his entire body. Then they were moving, the pack of motorcycles forming up around them, and Riverside Avenue blurred past. Marcus had never felt anything like it. The wind in his face, the power of the bike beneath him, the sense of belonging, of being part of something bigger than himself. For the first time in as long as he could remember, Marcus Chin felt safe. The clubhouse was nothing like Marcus expected. It wasn't some seedy bar or rundown shack. It was a compound, surrounded by a high fence topped with barbed wire, with security cameras covering every angle. The main building was a large warehouse that had been converted into a combination meeting hall, garage, and living space. As the bikes rolled through the gate, Marcus saw more Hell's Angels milling around, working on motorcycles, talking in groups, lifting weights in an outdoor gym. They all stopped to watch as Jax and the others arrived. Jax killed his engine and dismounted, helping Marcus off the bike. "The kid stays here," Jax announced to the assembled crowd. "Anyone got a problem with that?" Silence. Then one by one, the bikers nodded. A few even smiled. Jax led Marcus inside. The interior was surprisingly comfortable. There were couches, a big screen TV, a pool table, and a kitchen that smelled like coffee and bacon. Grizzly, the older biker, followed them in. "I'll get him set up in one of the spare rooms," Grizzly offered. Jax shook his head. "He stays in the room next to mine. I want to keep an eye on him." Grizzly raised an eyebrow but didn't argue. "You got it, boss." Jax turned to Marcus. "You hungry?" Marcus's stomach answered for him, growling loudly. Jax chuckled, the sound warm and genuine. "Come on, let's get some food in you." Over the next few hours, Marcus was fed, given clean clothes that were too big but better than what he'd been wearing, and shown to a small room with a bed, a dresser, and a window overlooking the compound. It wasn't much, but to Marcus, it felt like a palace. He sat on the edge of the bed, still trying to process everything that had happened. A knock on the door pulled him from his thoughts. "Come in," he called. The door opened, and Jack stepped inside. He'd changed out of his vest and was wearing a simple black t-shirt and jeans. He looked more human somehow, less intimidating. "How are you holding up, kid?" Jax asked, leaning against the doorframe. Marcus shrugged. "I'm okay. Just, this is a lot." Jax nodded. "I get it. This morning you were on your own, and now you're here. It's a big change." He paused, then continued. "Marcus, I need you to understand something. What you did today wasn't just brave. It was selfless. You didn't know Sophia. You didn't know me. But you risked your life anyway. That's not common. That's rare. And in our world, loyalty and courage like that mean everything." Marcus looked down at his hands. "I just did what anyone would do." Jax shook his head. "No. Most people would have stood there with their phones out, filming. You acted. And because of you, my wife and my child are alive. I owe you a debt, Marcus. A debt I can never fully repay. But I'm going to try." Marcus didn't know what to say to that, so he just nodded. Jax straightened. "Get some rest. Tomorrow, we'll check on Sophia at the hospital. I want you to come with me." The next morning, Marcus woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of motorcycles revving outside. He dressed in the clothes Grizzly had given him, jeans and a plain gray t-shirt, both of which hung loose on his thin frame. When he stepped out into the main hall, several bikers were already up, eating breakfast and talking in low voices. Jax was sitting at the head of a long table, a cup of coffee in one hand and his phone in the other. He looked up when Marcus entered. "Morning, kid. Sleep okay?" Marcus nodded. "Yeah, better than I have in a long time." Jax gestured to an empty seat. "Sit. Eat. We're heading to the hospital in an hour." Marcus loaded a plate with scrambled eggs and toast and sat down. Reaper, the biker with the ponytail, slid a glass of orange juice across the table to him. "You're gonna need your strength, kid," Reaper said with a grin. "Hanging with us ain't easy." The other bikers chuckled, and Marcus found himself smiling too. An hour later, Marcus was back on Jax's bike, the two of them leading a convoy of 4 motorcycles toward Riverside General Hospital. The ride was shorter this time, and soon they were pulling into the hospital parking lot. As they dismounted, Marcus noticed the stares they got. The Hells Angels weren't exactly welcome everywhere, and a hospital was neutral territory at best. But Jax walked through the front doors like he owned the place, and no one stopped him. They took the elevator to the maternity ward, and Jax led Marcus to a private room at the end of the hall. He knocked softly, then pushed the door open. Sophia was propped up in bed, looking pale but alive. Her hand rested on her belly, and when she saw Jax, her face lit up. "You came," she said, her voice hoarse. Jax crossed the room in 2 strides and kissed her forehead. "Of course I came. How are you? How's the baby?" Sophia smiled. We're okay. The doctors say the baby's heartbeat is strong. We got lucky. She looked past Jax and saw Marcus standing awkwardly by the door. Marcus, she said, her smile widening. Come here. Marcus approached the bed, his hands stuffed in his pockets. Sophia reached out and took his hand. I owe you everything, she said, tears slipping down her cheeks. If you hadn't been there, if you hadn't pulled me out, Marcus shifted uncomfortably. I'm just glad you're okay. Sophia squeezed his hand. You're a hero, Marcus. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. A nurse entered the room, carrying a clipboard. She paused when she saw the group of rough-looking men and a scrawny teenager surrounding the patient, but she maintained her professional composure. Mrs. Holt, I just need to check your vitals, and then you can rest. Jax nodded and stepped back, pulling Marcus with him. We'll be outside. Sophia caught Jax's hand. Don't go far. And Jax? He turned. Yeah? She glanced at Marcus. Take care of him. He's special. Jax's expression softened. I know. Out in the hallway, Marcus leaned against the wall, his mind racing. Jax stood beside him, arms crossed, staring at the floor. Finally, Marcus spoke. Why are you being so nice to me? Jax looked at him, surprised. What do you mean? Marcus gestured vaguely. All of this. Bringing me to the clubhouse, giving me food and clothes, and including me in all this. I'm nobody. Jax's jaw tightened. You're nobody, Marcus. Not to me. Not to Sophia. And not to the club. He turned to face Marcus fully. You want to know why I'm doing this? Because when I was your age, I was in a bad place. My old man was a drunk who used me as a punching bag. I ran away, lived on the streets, did things I'm not proud of just to survive. And then someone gave me a chance. Someone saw something in me worth saving. That someone was a Hell's Angel named Bones. He took me in, gave me a place to belong, and taught me what it means to be part of a brotherhood. And because of him, I turned my life around. He paused, his voice rough with emotion. You remind me of me, kid. And I'll be damned if I let you go through what I went through alone. Marcus felt his throat tighten. He blinked rapidly, trying to keep the tears at bay, but a few escaped anyway. Jax placed a hand on his shoulder. Your family now, Marcus. And we take care of the family. If you believe that no kid should have to survive on the streets alone, drop a comment below saying, protect the kids. Because what happens next is going to change everything for Marcus and for the Hells Angels. Over the next few days, Marcus settled into life at the clubhouse. It was strange at first, living among bikers who cursed and drank and worked on motorcycles until the early hours of the morning. But beneath the rough exterior, Marcus discovered something unexpected. These men had honor. They had rules. And they looked out for each other with a fierceness that Marcus had never experienced. Grizzly took it upon himself to make sure Marcus ate regularly and had clean clothes. Reaper taught him how to change a tire and check the oil on a bike. And Jax was always there, checking in, making sure Marcus was okay. A week after the accident, Sophia was discharged from the hospital. Jax brought her back to a house on the edge of the compound, a modest two-story place that Marcus hadn't noticed before. This is where we live, Jax explained as they pulled up. Away from the main clubhouse so Sophia can have some peace and quiet. Sophia invited Marcus inside, and he found himself in a cozy living room with mismatched furniture and photos on the walls. Most of the photos were of Jax and Sophia at various stages of their relationship, smiling, laughing, living. Sophia made tea, and the three of them sat around the kitchen table. Marcus, Sophia began, her hands wrapped around her mug. I've been thinking a lot about what happened. About you. Marcus shifted in his seat, unsure where this was going. Sophia continued. You saved my life and the life of my baby. And I know you don't have anywhere else to go. So Jax and I talked, and we want to offer you something. Marcus's heart pounded. What? Sophia glanced at Jax, who nodded encouragement. We want you to stay with us. Permanently. Marcus blinked, sure he'd misheard. What? Jax leaned forward. We're not talking about fostering or anything official like that. Just stay here. Live with us. Be part of our family. Marcus felt like the floor had dropped out from under him. You want me to live with you? Sophia smiled, tears in her eyes. You gave me and my baby a second chance, Marcus. Let us give you one too. Marcus didn't trust his voice, so he just nodded. Sophia reached across the table and took his hand. Welcome home, Marcus. That night, Marcus lay in a real bed in a real room, staring at the ceiling. He thought about his grandmother, about the months he'd spent on the streets, about the desperation and loneliness that had become his constant companions. And now, somehow, impossibly, he had a home. He had people who cared about him. He belonged. But peace never lasts forever. 2 weeks later, Marcus was in the garage at the clubhouse, helping Grizzly rebuild an engine, when Jax's phone rang. Marcus didn't pay much attention at first, but then he saw Jax's face go pale. Jax stepped outside to continue the conversation, and Marcus exchanged a worried glance with Grizzly. Something's wrong, Grizzly muttered. When Jax came back inside, his expression was grim. He gathered the club members who were present, a group of about 10 men, and spoke in a low, controlled voice. We've got a problem. A biker named Crow, a young guy with sharp eyes and a quick temper, spoke up. What kind of problem? Jax's jaw clenched. The accident that nearly killed Sophia. It wasn't an accident. The room went dead silent. Marcus felt his stomach twist. What do you mean? He asked quietly. Jax looked at him, and Marcus saw anger simmering beneath the surface. The cops just finished their investigation. Someone tampered with Sophia's car. Cut the brake lines. She was targeted. Reaper cursed viciously. Who would do that? Jax's eyes were hard as stone. That's what we're going to find out. Marcus felt a chill run down his spine. Someone had tried to kill Sophia. And if he hadn't been there, if he hadn't pulled her out of that car, she and her baby would be dead. The rest of the day passed in a blur of tense conversations and phone calls. The Hells Angels were mobilizing, reaching out to contacts, gathering information. Marcus tried to stay out of the way, but he couldn't shake the feeling that something bad was coming. That night, Jax called a full club meeting. Marcus wasn't a member, but Jax insisted he be there. You're part of this, kid. You need to hear what's being said. The main hall of the clubhouse was packed with bikers, all of them grim-faced and ready for action. Jax stood at the front, his presence commanding. Brothers, he began. We all know what happened to Sophia, and now we know it was intentional. Someone tried to kill my wife and my unborn child. A wave of angry murmurs rippled through the room. Jax continued. I've been in touch with some of our contacts on the street, and we've got a lead. There's a crew operating out of the east side, calling themselves the Iron Reapers. They've been trying to move in on our territory, and word is they thought taking out Sophia would send a message. It would make us weak. Grizzly stood up, his face flushed with anger. Then they don't know us very well. Jax nodded. No, they don't. And it's time we remind them who they're dealing with. He looked around the room. We ride tomorrow night. We're going to visit the Iron Reapers, and we're going to make it clear that you don't mess with the Hells Angels. The room erupted in shouts of agreement, fists pounding on tables. Marcus watched, both awed and terrified by the raw energy in the room. After the meeting, Jax pulled Marcus aside. You're staying here tomorrow night. This isn't something for you to be involved in. Marcus wanted to argue, but he knew Jax was right. This is dangerous, isn't it? He asked quietly. Jax nodded. Yeah, kid. It is. But it's necessary. We can't let this go unanswered. Marcus swallowed hard. Be careful. Jax ruffled Marcus's hair, a rare gesture of affection. I always am. The next night, Marcus watched from the clubhouse window as the Hells Angels prepared to ride out. There were at least 20 of them, all wearing their cuts, all armed. Jax gave Marcus a final nod before mounting his bike, and then they were gone, the roar of engines fading into the night. Marcus sat in the common room with a few of the older members who'd stayed behind to guard the compound. The tension was thick, the silence heavy. Hours passed. Marcus tried to distract himself with a book, but he couldn't focus. Finally, around midnight, The sound of motorcycles returning echoed through the compound. Marcus ran outside, relief flooding through him when he saw Jax dismounting his bike. Jax's knuckles were bruised, and there was a cut above his eyebrow, but he was alive. He saw Marcus and managed a tired smile. "It's done," Jax said. "The Iron Reapers won't be a problem anymore." Marcus didn't ask for details. He didn't want to know. Over the following weeks, life returned to a semblance of normalcy. Sophia's belly grew rounder, and Jax became increasingly protective. Marcus started attending school again, enrolled by Sophia, who insisted that education was important. It was strange at first, sitting in a classroom after months on the streets, but Marcus threw himself into his studies with determination. He had a future now. He wasn't going to waste it. One afternoon, Marcus came home from school to find Sophia in the kitchen, baking cookies. She smiled when she saw him. "How was school?" "Good," Marcus said, dropping his backpack by the door. "I got an A on my history test." Sophia beamed. "That's wonderful, Marcus. I'm so proud of you." Marcus felt warmth spread through his chest. He'd never had anyone be proud of him before, not like this. "Sophia," he said hesitantly, "can I ask you something?" "Of course. Why did you and Jax really take me in? I mean, I know I helped you, but you didn't have to do all this." Sophia set down the mixing bowl and looked at him with gentle eyes. "Marcus, when you pulled me out of that car, you gave me and my baby a chance at life. But more than that, you showed me something. You showed me that courage and kindness still exist in this world, even in the most unexpected places. Jax and I believe in taking care of people who deserve it. And you, Marcus Chun, you deserve so much more than what life has given you so far." Marcus felt tears prick his eyes, and this time he didn't try to hide them. "Thank you," he whispered. Sophia pulled him into a hug, and Marcus let himself be held, feeling safe and loved in a way he'd never thought possible. The weeks turned into months. Sophia's due date approached, and the atmosphere in the house shifted to one of excited anticipation. Jax was a nervous wreck, constantly checking on Sophia, making sure she had everything she needed. Marcus found it amusing, seeing this tough biker reduced to a bundle of nerves by the impending arrival of his child. One night, Marcus was woken by a knock on his door. He sat up groggily. "Yeah?" The door opened, and Jax stuck his head in. "Kid, it's time. Sophia's in labor. We're heading to the hospital." Marcus was instantly awake. "I'm coming with you." Jax nodded. "I figured you'd say that. Get dressed." The drive to the hospital was tense, Jax gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white. Sophia sat in the passenger seat, breathing through contractions, her face pale but determined. Marcus sat in the back, his heart pounding. At the hospital, Sophia was immediately taken to a delivery room. Jax and Marcus were directed to a waiting area, where they sat surrounded by other anxious fathers and family members. Hours passed. Jax paced. Marcus tried to read a magazine, but couldn't focus. Finally, a nurse appeared. "Mr. Holt?" Jax was on his feet in an instant. "Yeah, that's me." The nurse smiled. "Congratulations. You have a healthy baby girl." Jax's face transformed, relief and joy flooding his features. "And Sophia? She's doing great. You can see them now." Jax grabbed Marcus's arm. "Come on, kid. You're part of this family." They followed the nurse down the hall and into a private room. Sophia was propped up in bed, looking exhausted but radiant. And in her arms, wrapped in a pink blanket, was the tiniest, most perfect baby Marcus had ever seen. Jax approached slowly, as if afraid he might break the spell. Sophia smiled up at him, tears streaming down her face. "Meet your daughter." Jax reached out and gently took the baby, cradling her with surprising tenderness. "She's perfect," he whispered, his voice choked with emotion. Marcus stood back, not wanting to intrude on the moment. But Sophia beckoned him over. "Marcus, come here." Marcus approached the bed, and Sophia gestured for him to sit. "Do you want to hold her?" Marcus's eyes widened. "Are you sure?" Jax carefully placed the baby in Marcus's arms, showing him how to support her head. Marcus looked down at the tiny face, the closed eyes, the little fingers curled into fists. She's so small, he breathed. Sophia smiled. She's strong, just like her big brother. Marcus looked up sharply. What? Jax grinned. We've been talking, Marcus. And if you're okay with it, we'd like to make this official. We want to adopt you. Make you a legal part of our family. Marcus felt his vision blur with tears. You want to adopt me? Sophia reached out and took his hand. You saved my life, Marcus. You gave me the chance to have this beautiful baby girl. But more than that, you've become part of our lives. Part of our hearts. We can't imagine our family without you. Jax added, You're my son, Marcus. In every way that matters. And I want to make it official. Marcus looked down at the baby in his arms, then back at Jax and Sophia. These people who had taken him in, who had given him a home and a future, who had made him feel like he mattered. Yes, he whispered. Yes, I want that. Sophia let out a sob of joy, and Jax pulled Marcus into a one-armed hug, careful not to jostle the baby. Welcome to the family, kid. Officially. If you've been following Marcus's journey from the streets to this moment, drop a like and share this video. And let me know in the comments what you would have done in Marcus's place. Would you have run into that burning car? Over the next few months, life was a whirlwind of paperwork and court dates as Jax and Sophia worked to legally adopt Marcus. There were home visits from social workers, interviews, and background checks. But through it all, Marcus never doubted that this was where he belonged. The baby, named Emma, became the center of their world. Marcus found himself falling into the role of big brother with ease, helping with feedings and diaper changes, making silly faces to get her to smile. Jax watched Marcus with Emma one afternoon and shook his head in wonder. You're a natural, kid. Marcus shrugged, but he was smiling. She's pretty great. Jax sat down beside him. You know, I never thought I'd be a father. Never thought I deserved it. But then Sophia came into my life, and everything changed. And now, with Emma and with you, I feel like the luckiest guy in the world. Marcus looked at Jax, this man who had become his father in every sense of the word. I'm the lucky one. The adoption was finalized on a cold day in December. Marcus stood in a courtroom, flanked by Jax and Sophia, as a judge signed the papers that made them a family. When it was done, Jax pulled Marcus into a bear hug, lifting him off his feet. You're officially a Holt, kid. Marcus Chinholt. Marcus laughed, feeling lighter than air. That night, the Hells Angels threw a party at the clubhouse to celebrate. The place was packed with bikers, their families, and friends. There was food, music, and laughter. Marcus found himself surrounded by people congratulating him, clapping him on the back, welcoming him into the fold. Grizzly raised a glass. To Marcus, he shouted over the noise. The bravest kid I've ever met. To Marcus, the crowd echoed, raising their glasses. Marcus felt his face heat with embarrassment, but he couldn't stop smiling. Later, as the party wound down, Marcus stepped outside for some air. The night was cold and clear, the stars bright overhead. Jax joined him, 2 bottles of soda in hand. He handed one to Marcus, and they stood in comfortable silence. You okay, kid? Jax asked. Marcus nodded. Yeah, I'm happy. I didn't think I'd ever feel this way again. Jax clinked his bottle against Marcus's. You deserve it, Marcus. Every bit of it. Marcus looked up at the stars, thinking about his grandmother, about the months he'd spent alone and afraid. And then he thought about the choice he'd made that morning, to run toward danger instead of away from it. To save a stranger because it was the right thing to do. That one choice had changed everything. You know, Marcus said quietly, I used to think my life was over, that I'd always be alone. But then I met you and Sophia, and everything changed. Jax put a hand on Marcus's shoulder. You changed our lives, too, kid. You gave us more than you know. They stood there together, father and son, under the stars. And Marcus felt, for the first time in his life, truly at peace. But as with all stories, peace is fragile. A few months later, Marcus was walking home from school when he noticed a car following him. It was a black sedan with tinted windows, moving slowly, keeping pace with him. Marcus's instincts, honed by months on the streets, kicked in. He turned down a side street, walking faster. The car followed. Marcus broke into a run. He darted through an alley, his heart pounding, and burst out onto a busier street. He pulled out his phone and called Jax. The phone rang once, twice. Pick up, Marcus muttered. Finally, Jax's voice. Marcus? What's wrong? There's a car following me, Marcus gasped, still running. I don't know who they are. Where are you? Near the school. Jax's voice was sharp, controlled. Get to a public place. Somewhere with people. I'm on my way. Marcus spotted a convenience store and ducked inside. The clerk looked up, startled, as Marcus rushed to the back of the store and crouched behind a shelf. Through the window, he saw the black sedan pull up outside. The door opened, and a man stepped out. He was tall, with a shaved head and a leather jacket. He scanned the street. Then his eyes locked on the convenience store. Marcus's blood ran cold. The man started toward the door. Marcus's phone buzzed. It was a text from Jax. 2 minutes out. Stay inside. Marcus clutched his phone, his hands shaking. The man entered the store, the bell above the door chiming. He walked slowly down the aisles, his gaze sweeping back and forth. Marcus pressed himself against the shelf, trying to stay out of sight. The man stopped, his head turning toward Marcus's hiding spot. Then, from outside, came the roar of motorcycles. The man froze, his expression shifting to alarm. He turned and bolted out of the store just as Jax and 3 other Hells Angels pulled up. Marcus ran to the door, relief flooding through him. Jax was off his bike in an instant, pulling Marcus into a protective embrace. You okay? Did he touch you? Marcus shook his head. No, I'm okay. He was following me. Jax's expression darkened. Reaper and Crow were already on their bikes, engines revving. We'll find him, Reaper said. Jax nodded. Go. The 2 bikers roared off in pursuit of the black sedan. Jax led Marcus to his bike. Come on, kid. Let's get you home. Back at the house, Sophia was waiting, her face pale with worry. She hugged Marcus tightly. Are you okay? What happened? Jax explained while Marcus sat on the couch, still shaken. Sophia's face went from worried to furious. Who would do this? Jax's jaw was set. I don't know, but I'm going to find out. That night, Jax called an emergency club meeting. Marcus was, again, included. The Hells Angels gathered, and Jax laid out what had happened. Someone's targeting Marcus, Jax said, and I want to know who and why. Grizzly spoke up. Could it be the Iron Reapers? We humiliated them. Maybe they're looking for payback. Jax shook his head. The Reapers are done. They wouldn't risk starting another war. This is someone else. Reaper and Crow returned an hour later, their expressions grim. We lost the sedan, Reaper said, but we got a partial plate. Running it now. Jax nodded. Keep me updated. For the next few days, the clubhouse was on high alert. Marcus was never alone, always accompanied by at least 2 Hells Angels whenever he left the house. Then, 3 days later, Reaper came to Jax with information. Boss, we got a hit on the plate. The car's registered to a guy named Vincent Cross. Jax's face went pale. Cross. Are you sure? Reaper nodded. Yeah. Who is he? Jax ran a hand through his hair. Vincent Cross was my old man. Marcus, who'd been listening from the doorway, stepped forward. Your father? Jax looked at him, pain in his eyes. Yeah, the man I told you about. The one who used to beat me. I thought he was dead. He disappeared years ago. Grizzly cursed. If Cross is back, that's bad news. Why would he be after Marcus? Jax's expression hardened. Because Marcus is my son now. And Cross, he's the kind of man who destroys anything that makes someone else happy. He knows hurting Marcus will hurt me. Marcus felt a chill run through him. So this is because of me? Because I'm part of your family? Jax crossed the room and gripped Marcus's shoulders. No, kid. This is because Cross is a sick, twisted bastard. None of this is your fault. But we're going to end it. Now, the Hells Angels mobilized. Contacts were reached out to, old favors called in. Within 2 days, they had a location. Vincent Cross was holed up in a rundown motel on the outskirts of the city. Jax assembled a team. This time, Marcus wasn't left behind. Jax wanted him close, where he could be protected. They rode out at dusk, a convoy of motorcycles cutting through the city streets. Marcus clung to Jax's back, his heart pounding. The motel was a dump, peeling paint and broken neon lights. The Hells Angels surrounded it, cutting off any escape routes. Jax, Grizzly, and Reaper approached the door of the room where Cross was supposedly hiding. Jax pounded on the door. "Cross, I know you're in there. Open up." For a long moment, there was silence. Then the door cracked open, and a man peered out. He was older, weathered, with cold eyes and a sneer on his lips. Well, if it isn't my boy Jax. All grown up and playing biker. Jax's fists clenched. "What do you want, old man?" Cross's eyes flicked to Marcus, standing behind Jax. "Is that your kid? The one you're playing house with?" Jax stepped forward, blocking Marcus from view. "Stay away from him." Cross laughed, a harsh, grating sound. "Or what? You gonna beat me up? Like I used to beat you?" Jax's voice was low, dangerous. "You laid a hand on Marcus. You tried to scare him. That ends now." Cross shrugged. "I just wanted to see what kind of man you'd become, Jax. Wanted to see if you'd forgotten where you came from." Jax's jaw tightened. "I know exactly where I came from. And I know I'm nothing like you." Cross's expression twisted. "You think you're better than me? You're a Hell's Angel, Jax. You're a thug. Just like me." Jax shook his head. "No, I'm nothing like you. I protect the people I love. I don't terrorize them." Grizzly stepped forward. "Boss, you want us to take care of this?" Jax held up a hand. "No, this is between me and him." He looked at Cross. "You're going to leave. Tonight. And you're never coming back. If I ever see you near my family again, I won't be so merciful." Cross sneered. "Merciful? You don't have it in you to hurt me. You're weak. You always were." Jax's expression didn't change. "Try me." For a long moment, the two men stared at each other. Then Cross spat on the ground and stepped back. "Fine. I'll go. But you're making a mistake, Jax. Family's family. You can't just walk away from that." Jax's voice was cold. "I'm not walking away. I already did. Years ago. And I found a better family. One that doesn't hurt the other." Cross looked at Marcus one last time, then slammed the door shut. The sound of him packing could be heard from inside. Jax turned and walked back to Marcus, placing a hand on his shoulder. "Let's go home." They rode back to the clubhouse in silence. Marcus could feel the tension radiating off Jax, but he didn't say anything. Back at the house, Sophia was waiting. She took one look at Jax's face and pulled him into a hug. "It's over," Jax said quietly. "He's gone." Sophia looked over at Marcus. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" Marcus nodded. "Yeah, I'm okay." That night, as Marcus lay in bed, he thought about Vincent Cross, about the man who had tried to break Jax and had now tried to intimidate Marcus. But Cross had failed, because Marcus had something Cross never understood. He had a family that would fight for him, protect him, and stand by him no matter what. And that made all the difference. The months that followed were some of the happiest of Marcus's life. He excelled in school, made friends, and became an integral part of the Hells Angels community. He wasn't a member, not officially, but everyone knew he was family. Emma grew, learning to crawl and then walk, her laughter filling the house. Marcus spent hours playing with her, reading to her, and teaching her new words. Jax and Sophia watched with pride as Marcus blossomed into a confident, caring young man. One evening, as they sat around the dinner table, Sophia looked at Marcus. "You know, we've been talking." Marcus glanced up from his plate. "About what?" Jax smiled. "About the future. Yours specifically." Marcus set down his fork. "What about it?" Sophia reached across the table and took his hand. "You've been through so much, Marcus. And you've come so far. We're incredibly proud of you." Marcus felt his cheeks heat. "Thanks. But that's not all." Jax leaned back in his chair. "You're 16 now, Marcus. Old enough to start thinking about what you want to do with your life. Have you thought about it? Marcus hesitated. A little. I mean, I like school. I'm good at it. But I don't know what I want to do yet. Sophia smiled. That's okay. You have time. But we want you to know that whatever you decide, we'll support you. College, trade school, whatever makes you happy. Jax nodded. You've got a good head on your shoulders, kid. And you've got heart. You can do anything you set your mind to. Marcus felt emotion swell in his chest. Thank you. For everything. Later that night, Marcus stood on the porch, looking out at the compound. The Hells Angels were gathered around a bonfire, their laughter echoing in the night. Jax joined him, 2 bottles of soda in hand. He handed one to Marcus. What are you thinking about? Marcus took a sip. Just everything. How different my life is now compared to a few years ago. Jax nodded. You've come a long way, kid. Marcus looked at him. I couldn't have done it without you. Without this family. Jax put an arm around Marcus's shoulders. We're lucky to have you, Marcus. You taught us what real courage looks like. And that's something I'll never forget. They stood there in comfortable silence, watching the fire. And Marcus realized that home wasn't a place. It was the people who stood by you, who fought for you, who loved you unconditionally. And he had finally found his. Years passed. Marcus graduated from high school with honors. He was accepted into college, where he studied social work, determined to help other kids like him who had fallen through the cracks. Emma grew into a bright, spirited little girl who adored her big brother. Jax and Sophia continued to run the Hells Angels with integrity and strength. And Marcus became a bridge between the world of the Hells Angels and the outside world. He organized community outreach programs, worked with at-risk youth, and became a voice for those who had none. People often asked him about his past, about the day he pulled a pregnant woman from a burning car. And Marcus always told them the same thing. That day changed my life. But it also taught me that one moment of courage can ripple outward in ways you never expect. Saving Sophia didn't just save her life. It saved mine too. On the 10th anniversary of that day, the Hells Angels threw a celebration. The compound was filled with people, bikers and families, and friends. Marcus stood at the center of it all, now a confident young man in his mid-20s, and looked around at the faces that had become his family. Jax approached Emma, now 10 years old, at his side. She smiled up at Marcus. You're the best big brother ever. Marcus ruffled her hair. You're not so bad yourself, squirt. Jax clapped Marcus on the back. Speech time, kid. Marcus groaned. Do I have to? Sophia appeared, carrying a cake with candles. Yes, you do. Marcus took a deep breath and stepped up onto a makeshift stage. The crowd quieted. I'm not great at speeches, Marcus began. But I want to say something. 10 years ago, I was living behind a gas station, alone and scared. I had nothing. I was nobody. And then one morning, I saw a car crash. I saw someone who needed help. And I didn't think. I just acted. He paused, looking at Sophia, who stood beside Jax, tears in her eyes. That choice changed everything. Not just for Sophia, but for me. Because when I pulled her from that car, I didn't just save her life. I found my own. He looked at Jax. You took a homeless kid off the streets and gave him a home. You gave him a family. You gave him a future. And I will spend the rest of my life trying to pay that forward. The crowd erupted in applause. Jax pulled Marcus into a hug, and Sophia joined them, Emma wrapping her arms around Marcus's waist. This, Marcus thought, is what home feels like. If you believe in the power of second chances, in the importance of family, and in standing up for what's right no matter the cost, then hit that subscribe button and share this story. Leave a comment telling me what Marcus's story means to you. Because stories like this remind us that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they're just kids who refuse to walk away when someone needs help. And sometimes, the people we save end up saving us right back. Marcus Chinholtz's story didn't end that day at the gas station. It began, and the ripples of that one act of courage continued to spread, touching lives, changing futures, and proving that even in the darkest moments, there is always hope. always a chance for redemption, and always, always a reason to be brave. Thank you for listening to Marcus's journey. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and drop a comment below. Where are you watching from? And what would you have done in Marcus's situation? Let me know, because your story matters too. And who knows, maybe one day, your moment of courage will change everything.